Hey everybody, Taz from Critical Thinking Anarchist here. So I wanted to record this a couple days ago, but everything kept developing so quickly that it was very difficult to get this recorded, and then it just kept expanding and expanding on how everything developed over the last couple days. So here I am finally getting this done. So after a lot of the riots and the police actions and everything else that have been going on the last couple weeks, we've seen it across the country that people have started asking to defund the police and disband the police. It's gotten serious. I mean, it's been, of course, through citizens and even a couple of mayors and celebrities, of course. But as far as I know, Minneapolis is the first city council that has actually proposed doing this. And they have actually proposed this. This isn't just, unlike where the headline reads here, where a city council member is saying, hey, I want to do this. They've actually started putting it forth. So I want to go through this here a little bit. So this is written in Time by Steve Fletcher. And he was saying in his statement here that the whole reason he wanted to get into politics was running on a platform of police corruption. And he throws in Justine Damon, kind of to throw it in as, look, I'm not really focusing on the racism aspect of police, because there has been a lot of police violence not against blacks. And in fact, statistically, there has even been shown that more whites have been killed than blacks by police violence. So he's saying the police have a history of violence, and he throws in essentially Justine as kind of a token, because everybody else that he mentioned is someone of color. He specifically mentions that police would persistently harass black canvassers that he worked with, and then Jamar Clark and Thurman Blevins, Travis Jordan, Mario Benjamin, Cheshire Fong Vu, and then, of course, George Floyd. So Justine Damon is the only one who is white, and she was killed by a Somali police officer, a Somali American police officer. I will also note that in the shootings of Jamar Clark and Justine, that the police officers in question had been with the force for a very short amount of time. The two officers with Jamar Clark had only been had only been officers for 13 months each. With Justine, it was pretty close to that same thing. It was like 7 months to a year or something like that. I haven't gone into it for a while. But so he's going on saying that he wants that this is a history of police violence, and that police are essentially out of control, and that we need to get rid of the police and replace them with something else. And one of the other ones I have in here is Ilhan Omar, and if you have followed politics at all, Ilhan Omar was elected around the same time as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she is Minnesota's answer to AOC. She is Minnesota's version of AOC, and she has been very vocal and very controversial in her own rights. She is also Muslim, I believe, and been very outspoken against Israel, and very, very much for pro-Muslim, anti-Israel movements. So her throwing her weight behind this kind of both gives it that super far left credibility, while also at the same time kind of throwing it under the bus for anyone who is not super far left, because there are a lot of people who are very much critics of Ilhan Omar. In response, Mayor Fry, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry, signed a restraining order that bans police chokeholds and other uses of force by police officers. Along with that, in the restraining order, there are ways to report other officers if you see them doing something wrong. one of the things that people have brought up is that officers don't feel like they can report their fellow officers, their coworkers. Part of it is the unwritten rule where you just don't rat on your coworkers, and the other part is that they don't want retribution coming back on them, and rightfully so. So back to the city council. They actually held a meeting on Friday to discuss the framework for a systemic change. So they actually wanted to go in there, defund the police, and bring in a new system. Nobody has quite said yet what this system would be. This is actually a great take by Young Repa 59 on YouTube, and I've been following him for the last few days on his takes on all this stuff. It's very good, very fun. But he goes in and says, sure, defund the police, but then no more taxation, no more gun control laws. His thing is, if you're going to get rid of the police, don't replace it with a different version of the police. Replace it with the ability of citizens to protect themselves and give them the tools to do so. So we're no longer, he doesn't want us to be taxed to fund the police or fund any of these projects. He wants us to be able to get guns and ammunition and be able to properly defend ourselves in our own homes when we have shitty people coming in and destroying our lives. And then also have the laws that back us up on that. I'm okay with that idea, but I don't think, A, that would ever happen, and B, I don't think it's the right way to go. Most of the people in the world are not equipped to defend themselves. We just can't. We don't know how, we don't have the training. Even if someone comes into our house and we have the tools to do so, we don't know how to use those tools. And even the few people who are educated enough aren't going to be able to protect the people that are not educated enough. And there is a lot of uneducated people out there in the world, and believe me, they let you know how uneducated they are on social media. My thought on what the Minneapolis City Council wants to do is replace the police department with what boils down to be mall cops. So they would be people who don't actually have any real authority. They're there. They enforce laws as best they can, but they don't have weapons. They ride around on Segways and bicycles and use zip ties. They're not going to use handcuffs, and they're not going to have batons, and they're not going to have guns, and they're not going to have tasers or pepper spray or any of that stuff. And most of these people are not going to be educated on how to defend themselves, how to properly restrain somebody else. They'll be educated on how the city council wants them to restrain somebody else, but not how to actually restrain somebody else, because that might cause that person harm. Now, to his incredibly tiny bit of credit here, shame upon him, because they hated him that much. Now, this is a threefold thing. The final straw for them is that they didn't want him. They didn't like the fact that he wasn't going to defund the police department. But you have two other things there. He wasn't leading in Minneapolis at all the past 2 weeks. He was sitting there and he allowed, and this is the big one, he allowed rioters and terrorists to destroy his city, to destroy homes, to destroy businesses, to destroy livelihoods. He did nothing about the police, but furthermore, he encouraged the destruction of people's lives. And I don't mean allowed destruction. He encouraged destruction. He got behind them. He let them destroy the 3rd police precinct. He let them go in and destroy businesses. He was not out there once helping clean up. He was not out there once helping to protect his city. He was never on the streets until that moment. He was never on the streets standing and saying, hey, I'm with you guys. This is not right. You know, George Floyd should never have been killed, and we are going to do everything we can to make sure that the people who did this face their justice, face their responsibility. He was never out there saying the rioters are wrong for destroying their neighborhoods. He was never out there saying the rioters were wrong to destroy a police precinct. He had nobody's back. Nobody's back. The only person's back he sort of had was George Floyd. George Floyd's dead. Him having his back when he's dead doesn't mean anything. He didn't have the police back. He didn't have the city's back. He doesn't have the businesses back. Nobody supports him. Why would anyone want him around? So yeah, I give him a tiny, 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 tiny bit of credit for saying, well, we're not going to defund the police. But that's only because he knows if he does that, he's completely done. He should be done right now. He should resign right now. Anyway, that's all I got for today. You guys take care. I'll talk to you soon.